Hugh became part of this group about how long ago now?
For GLS?
For just the 2-second link when you met with Paul.
It would have been a year and a half.
Okay, so a year and a half ago. And he has a really unique story because they have a business that does marine work, marine upholsteries, and they manufacture in China. And he's going to tell us a little bit about that. But I want to add that his mother has joined us here. There she is in the back, waving. And she is here to find out why Hugh is crazy at trying all this new lean stuff. And we wanted her to be able to join and see a bunch more crazy people to let her know her son is actually normal.
Howdy. For those of you who aren't familiar, in small towns across the United States, howdy is an informal, how do you do? And normally you say it and other people say it back. So we'll try it again since it's the end of the day. I'm going to get some blood flowing here. Howdy. Howdy. Hey, that works pretty good. All right. I wanted to first thank Rick and Angel for putting this on. I feel very, very humbled to be able to come here. And obviously Paul, wherever he's at, for starting all of this. But really all of you guys having the courage to come out and share everything. It's really, really incredible to be a part of this community. It's really amazing. And lastly, I wanted to thank the owner of my company, which is my mother, Carolyn, for coming. When we started out, there was an extreme amount of conflict, to put it politely. And now that is not the case. Now we're pretty much going the same direction. So huge improvements, and it just took continuously driving the ball forward. So with that, I'll get into the presentation. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself, followed by a little bit about the company. Then we're going to talk a little bit about polishing a turd, how to do that, and the results from that. So I apologize. I'm just a hill person from Missouri, so I like things in simple terms. All right, about me, I was born in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, to be precise. That is the home of Bass Pro. From age 10 to 18, I was at Missouri Military Academy. It was an all-male military school. After that, I graduated and went to Texas A&M University, where I joined the Corps of Cadets. And I decided that I did not like waking up early to go exercise, so I did not go into the military. Instead, I took my IT degree and went to work for an oil company managing servers to make sure that the safety systems didn't allow the site to get all exploding. And then after that, I actually went to go work for ServiceNow in San Diego, which was a cool experience. Worked on enterprise-wide systems for customer support, and learned a lot about learning and unlearning processes. IT and lean actually kind of go well because it's all about process. And then I came to work for Springfield Marine, which is a family-owned business my father started in 1952. And we'll get right into that. It started off as a fencing company. It was Carnahan the Fence Man was the slogan. And after that, they cast their own parts because they could not get things reliably in the 50s in rural Missouri. People kept asking, hey, Garnet, will you cast this? Will you cast that? Will you cast this? Will you cast that? And eventually he picked up White and sold the company to him, and he spun off Springfield Aluminum. Springfield Aluminum then organically developed into Springfield Marine because the marine industry uses a lot of aluminum because of its anti-corrosion and strength properties. Then in the 90s, 89 to be precise, I guess in the 90s, they went ahead, my parents went over to China, and they spun up a facility in China, which was very, very lucky, and you'll find out why in a second. Most of my story is going to be taking place around this, which is now known as Jiangsu Carnahan, or JC for short. Then tragedy struck in 1999. The factory in the United States burnt down. And here's an actual photograph of it. And while that does look impressive, it's going to look a lot more impressive when down here in the bottom right corner, there's a small rectangle. That is a 60-foot telephone pole. So it was crazy. It was a huge tragedy. And eventually, they did rebuild the system the plant in the States, but it was more or less a warehouse at the time. So most of the story takes place in China, and we're going to jump right into that. When I showed up, this is a facility that is 100 meters long by 50 meters wide, and it's totally jam-packed full of inventory. There are about 8 workers in this room right now, and there's just inventory everywhere. The transportation waste was crazy. It was staggering. We were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. No rest. It was crazy. So here's the way it looked before. There's inventory everywhere. You see, it's nice to have inventory because at the end, you just assemble it really quickly, and it's totally fine. So that's what we were all told. Here's that from another angle. These are just seats. You can see piles of inventory way in the back. This is about 2,000 seats in this picture. Here is our sewing department. We had about 30 sewers and massive amounts of batch work. In fact, most of the room was taken up with tables, just making sure that they could have the spot to put all the inventory. Here's our assembly line. It's kind of dark. I apologize. There's tons of inventory everywhere. It's one straight row, massive batch work. You can see they're doing the nice non-value-added activity of putting things nicely up. And then another angle, you can just see inventory everywhere. It's a good thing that nothing's precariously placed, so it could get knocked over. And the maintenance department. This is just a normal day. Yeah, the maintenance department, that wasn't special. So pretty much when I showed up, it was a gigantic pile of garbage. And here's what it looks like now. Just to give a sneak peek, we'll start at the end. Now we have color code, strong visual controls, identifying what blue bins are metric, green bins are standard, yellow bins are washers, red, which you can't see in the picture, are else. We have Kaizen foam drawers. If there's a tool missing, someone's currently using it. This is now the maintenance department. Very big difference than it was before. The mold department has their immediately used tools quite a bit, but these are all very small changes. But it's what I like to call polishing turd. That is a turd that was polished by Mythbusters, so thank you, Mythbusters, for having an awesome show. And we're going to get into a little bit about how we did this. And it was a very short time because we've only been doing lean a year and a half. And it is so simple. The president of Hawks told Paul-san, smart people won't believe how simple it is. So I'm going to give you half the puzzle right here, and then you have to wait to the end for the rest of the half. First thing is you need to have 3S time, sweep, sort, and standardize. And you need to have that every day for your people. Second one, you need to have a morning meeting, if you can. And the last one, you need to be humble. Your leadership needs to be humble all the way down. Anything that you have control over, if you're middle management, anything below you needs to be humble when you move this forward. And to be frank, excuses are like assholes. We all have them, and they all stink. Here's some of my favorites. We're in office, or we're in IT. The 8 wastes don't apply to us. Or we're in 6 locations. We can't have a morning meeting. My personal favorite, do you have any idea how much time we would waste if we did this every day? So, to give you some backstory, I approached the owner of the company and I said, I would like an hour of everyone's time to do 3S and a morning meeting. And then, of course, I had to explain what that was, and that was promptly laughed at. And so some haggling went back and forth, and I was able to secure 1 hour of time. At that 1 hour of time, I was told, we'll give you a half hour of every day. This will be a 6-month trial. I need you to understand that you are going to fail, and your production numbers will go down. But this is a lesson that you need to learn, and you need to learn humility. So this is for you to fail. Here's a half hour every day for 6 months. So I immediately called the manager. I said, thank you. I left the office. I immediately called all my managers, 26 of them at the time, who had no management, no managers above them. They were kind of all running off on their own. And I said, we're going to be taking this time out of every day until Hugh Carnahan closes his doors for good because we're out of business. That's what I told them. And from there, we moved forward. And at the very beginning, we didn't have 3S. We barely even had 1S. We had 30 minutes a day, and they were just cleaning. They weren't even doing clean to inspect and looking for problems. They were just cleaning. Even though they were just cleaning, we were able to eliminate 2 full buildings full of inventory that people were just working around and over, and got that scrapped and out of the way and was able to condense some of the footprint immediately. Our ship rate went from 4.5 40-foot shipping containers a week to 5.5 shipping containers a week. At that time, we cut the work week from 7 days a week to 6 days a week. You would have thought it was going to be a riot. They wanted to work. It was the strangest thing. Even with that, our production numbers did not drop. And in the first year, we had an 18% increase in shipping containers shipped that year and a 9% decrease in cost. And that was just from 3S'ing-ish. So then enter the morning meeting. Everyone says, crawl before you walk, walk before you run. And it felt a lot like this guy. You had a hillbilly from Missouri trying to communicate radical Western ideas like maybe the guy on the ground knows his job better than you do, to an Eastern audience that's been taught obey and don't question authority. We had managers and 350 workers who didn't want to be in the room after we had just made them clean. Everyone thought it would be a huge waste of time, and it was horrible for at least 3 months. And then it slowly got better. But we didn't give up. It was myself and Pat, the plant manager. We led the morning meetings. We had 0 content. We didn't have videos. There was almost no lean content built out in Mandarin and Chinese. So I kind of had to build it all and also like explain stuff, and then got things wrong, and it was very interesting. So it was just the most boring thing you could think of, but we kept pushing on, and it just continued to grind forward. Eventually, we were like, oh man, we should get the production planning team involved. We're going to have them meet with the managers. The managers are then going to do some kind of 2-second lean improvement. The production people will film it, and we'll start having videos. And that helped increase. So the videos helped. The production planning team started to really understand what was going on, and the managers were starting to just barely understand. But for the most part, it was terrible, and it just lumbered on like that for a few months. Now, Paul came, I think it was his 3rd trip to our facility, and he looked around and he saw, Hugh, there are tons and tons of changes everywhere. It's great, but you're the only person that's doing it. Maybe Pat knows something, but really, you're the only one. It's like you're trying to push a train by yourself. It's just not going to work out very well. In fact, you need to clone yourself. You need to make 100 of you, and all of you need to be pushing this train all at the same time, or else this train will go nowhere. And I was like, Paul, that's the answer, thanks. And then he left, and I didn't know what to do. So things kept lumbering forward. Then I was watching CW Applied Technologies had a video of Ryan and Michael, Ryan recounting a story, Ryan from Seating Matters and Michael from Yellow Tools recounting a story, and it was Ryan's holy crap moment, which I'd like to share. Basically, he was visiting Yellow Tools, he was about to leave, got on the bus, and Michael grabbed Ryan's arm. He said, lean is about developing people. It's about developing people. And Ryan said, yes, I've heard that before. And he said, yes, but you have not internalized it. Internalize it. Lean is about developing people. And that's when it clicked for Ryan. And at that moment, it clicked for me. I took what Paul said, and I took what was kind of working, the changes in the evolution of things that were working here for the morning meeting, and I combined them together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what's going on. So I hopped on a plane, went to go see Seating Matters, and spent 2 days with them, and it was awesome. Then we came back and reworked the morning meeting, and this is what we came up with. The biggest thing that we were missing out of this was the develop your people part. Even though every single lean video continuously says that everywhere, totally missed it for whatever reason. Develop your people. We didn't quite know how. So it's important for you to have 3S time, to have a morning meeting, and to be humble, but you need to use that to develop your people properly. And that's the missing ingredient. So now, Hugh Carnahan every single day now spends enough productivity time to hire a new employee and pay them for a full month. And our managers know this, and their job is to recoup that. So we changed our morning meeting process, and what we did was a process that this is actually from Cass Tailored. Tucker Cass shared it with me, called Head, Heart, Hands. If you train your guys, then their heart will eventually believe it, and their hands will naturally do it. For the last year at that point, I had just been trying to start at hands. Everyone tries to start with the tools. Everyone says, oh, Kanban this, and Kaizen foam that. And it has some benefits, but it's not the best. So we redid the morning meeting, and basically the employees were responsible for coming up with their videos. The managers shot the videos. The managers then developed the morning meeting. They have a rotation every 2 months. Every 2 months, they'd come up once. So they understood that they needed to get their job that day was to get all that value back. And Pat and I, who were experts at lean at that, we're not experts, but we were far more better at seeing waste. We took a total step back and out of it and just let the logistics flow. It was the first process in the entire company that organically runs itself without any supervision. It just runs itself. So that's the way it is. And so here is what the morning meeting looks like now.
All right, we're getting ready for the morning meeting. This is the new morning meeting. This is the deluxe morning meeting. Good to see you. Yeah. Neo! Yeah, all right.
Morning meeting starts off with a big hearty good morning, followed by who's going to be leading tomorrow's morning meeting. After that, they give a big thanks to anyone who helped out the day before, and then they say what they're thankful for. We then go into the 8-waste story from beginning to end, and then we delve into one of the wastes for the day. After that, we show videos of examples of that waste. That's what you're seeing here.
They're teaching about what overproduction looks like on the line this morning.
After the 8 waste for the day, we do upper body stretches.
Next is a 2-second lean improvement for the day. More stretching. All right, then it's the office workers, 2-second lean. And we have neck exercises. And we finish off with a product lesson. So at the end says smile. You're doing awesome.
We're glad we could bring you along for our morning meeting. This was one of the hardest things to get management to approve, and it's one of the most gratifying. Everyone's unified, we're on the same page, it's easy to disseminate information. If you don't have a morning meeting, you gotta get one. Thanks, see you next time. It's unconfirmed, but I believe, between Paul and I's conversations, this is the largest morning meeting on Earth. There are larger companies, but they don't meet every day. And we made it happen every single day. And so there's that. And this was developed after visiting Seating Matters, which I believe was just it feels like it was 4 months ago. But here are some results, and we can get into that, of what it looks like now. Bins tilted up, wheels on everything. You have labels on rolls, more wheels. Things are tilted so they can reduce their motion. Good labeling, strong visual controls. A way to sew and not have a big bundle and mess of zippers everywhere. More wheels. This is actually straight from Seating Matters. It's a way to handle trash during the sewing operations. Things are tilted so you can reach directly in and you don't have to go forward and down. Strong visual controls. Trash cans next to the work areas. They used to do this on the floor. Now everything's waist level and there's a machine that does it. Our office has wheels on everything. You need more strong visual control so you know exactly what it is, standardized across the company. All of the things that you've seen in this video happened in 1 month. It was 1 month. It was after I went to Seating Matters. It came back, totally redid the way we did the morning meeting. And after a year of gruelingly pushing the train by yourself, we now have the system set up to develop our people. And it was really, really just incredible, that way that everyone came together. So we went from tons of overproduction, working 12-hour days, and now to this in a month. And all it took was the previous things that we were discussing. Now, in 1969, we went to the moon and back with less power than is in our cell phones in our hands right now. They didn't make any excuses for it. They just made it happen. What excuses might you be making? Thank you.
So anyone have any questions for Hugh?
I do, but back here. So Hugh, so doing business in China, and all of us here in the United States, we see all the things about all the ships coming over and container after container of things from China. What things as a business in the U.S. or in other parts of the world should we be concerned at how successful that they're being over there, and this process that we're all this journey that we're all on? How important do you feel this is to be competitive? Because you obviously see lots of companies in China.
Sure. In 1989, when they started the company over there, it was 21 Chinese laborers for the cost of one U.S. laborer. Today, it's 3.7. We can absolutely beat that with lean, easily. Smash it out of the water, easily. One piece flow can easily do that. It's super, super critical that our process really guides it, because raw materials are the same cost everywhere. And if you can develop people to just knock it out of the park, then you can easily go up and compete with the Chinese companies.
I have some more to say. It's really, I came from Taiwan, and we under the Japanese rule for a long time, my parents. So we respect the Japanese very well. Chinese is not, because there is a history hatred. But I think the Chinese people, most of the Chinese people, I should say all of the Chinese people, the little one, are very hard worker. That's the reason why they can successful. Everybody going there, however you bend them, the worker, they will follow you. It's just difficult for the government side. But I think when we went there, I got it, Hugh's father and I, we went there 87, didn't done anything. 89, we see all those rise, but we are lucky enough 3 days before the tank that we went out. But we decided to stay, so the government is really help. We are really appreciate that we stay. And when we went there, we started in 1990. Hugh almost was born there. And we have to take the toilet paper. Can you imagine that? China was that poor, and this is in Shanghai. So after 10 years, 20 years, and now it's 30 years, he's almost 30 years, and look how Chinese become prosper. It's because of they have very high education, and also their hard work. And I think American once was that way. And I hope that America need to be really cranking up, coming back, all the manufacturers. I really appreciate seeing so many manufacturers here today. And Paul was right, that I was very, very nervous when Hugh started to change our Chinese plant. We used to see a lot of the inventory or production on the production table. Now we didn't see anything. Really didn't see anything but the box, the finished box right next to there. And with our local, the city mayors and the newspaper and TV all come to see us. Really proud of Hugh, but I was really scared in the very beginning. And now we have him to change to American. Now American side is really scared, so I didn't in charge American side, so I let them do whatever he can do. I know he can do it. I think the base that investment that I have Hugh, because I didn't have time to take care of Hugh, so I put him in the military school. So he was there 8 years, and then plus the 4 years in Texas A&M. So I think that's the discipline for the boys, maybe even the girls. That's very successful for anybody. You are educating, discipline your children, spank them. I don't know whether this is not able to spank them now, but he used to be all right to spank. That's the reason it turned out to be. He was very, well, anyway, he is good, and very good. And I think that's very appreciated. And I do really appreciate all these Rick and Angel that really helped put all this together. And I really surprised, and I really opened my eyes, and I realized that he is doing something that is so remarkable. Thank you so much.
That is an incredibly proud mother right there. So we have time for one more question, and we'll give it to Brett.
You were talking about having the world's biggest morning meeting, and it's a question I run into all the time where people are like, oh, I have 100 people. Do I get them all together? So, I mean, just quick, how does that work? Tell me how that works. How do you do it?
Well, first off, you need a room to do it in. We kind of created that room by rearranging the shop floor, and then we put everything on wheels so we could kind of push stuff out of the way. And the cheapest, quickest thing we could do is go buy garbage DJ equipment as quickly as we could. And then we found an old projector, and we hung a sheet on the wall, and that was our setup for a while, for about a year.
Okay, so for clarity, you basically are running the same morning meeting with how many people?
350.
Jesus, okay, so 350 people. That I'll be running at my company with 20, but you didn't make an excuse when you had 300 people.
That's correct. I didn't know, actually,
Awesome.
I had no idea that it was difficult at all, because Paul's book was like, yeah, just do it. And I was like, all right, we'll figure this out, we'll do it. And he was like, I'm pretty sure this is the biggest thing. So that's pretty much it. It was, I'm working with a brewery in Xi'an, China. He has actually a building, his company's in 6 locations. I'm helping him work through that process as well. We had some hiccups. We actually had to do 3S time first, followed by the morning meeting, because a lot of workers were non-compliant. They wanted to have we do the morning meeting first, and then done 3S time, they would just start working. So we just had to make it so annoying that if they started, they'd have to stop. So that was an intentional sandbagging of the work. So I mean, it's different for everybody. You just kind of work out how it works. It definitely didn't start like this. It was a gradual development, and organically it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I think Ryan talks about it a little bit, which is at some point I had to step back and let it run itself, and let it work out its kinks. I'd say the morning meeting definitely was aimed at developing the people, and that really was it. It was the fact that they were running it, they were engaged, they were teaching, they were shooting the videos, and it was the people that were teaching it, when they shoot the videos, when they train, that is when they learn. They have 90% retention. When you're just sitting here listening, you only have 10% retention. So that was the biggest difference. When I stepped back, Pat and I stepped back, and it just ran itself, you suddenly had massive standardizations that could roll out within a month, and massive label changes, and oh, hey, someone else came up with this, and oh, pen caps need to be pointed down, and it just all rolled out, one after the other, and it just came organically. So one size doesn't fit all. It needs to be what works for your company.
So Hugh, before you leave, actually, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm going to tell a little bit about our company. And so, and the reason I bring this up is you mentioned in it the challenges about cutting production time to do 3S and then morning meetings. So at Phoenix, we actually currently work an 8-hour day, but we only have 5.5 hours of scheduled productivity, 5.5 to 6. And that is because we have our 30 minutes of 3S, about 30 minutes of a daily meeting. And we also have a requirement that they spend 30 minutes per day on personal development. And so it works out to, it's not every single day. We have a minimum that you have to do. But that time is spent on developing themselves to become more effective in the business. And so we do other things. We've extended the amount of break time. So not 10 minutes like is required by law. We have 15 minutes. We even do meditation in the afternoon, which it's funny because it's mainly the production guys that come in for meditation, which you wouldn't typically imagine. But the number one question I always get, so when we do our tours, we have them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have people come through, and at the end, I'll go and meet with them, and you have any questions? And they say, how do you possibly keep up your production by only working 6 hours a day, and or 5 hours a day? You're losing so much productivity. And my response typically is, you're a fool if you think your people are working 8 hours a day.
Right.
If your people work 1 hour a day, you're lucky because they're miserable, because you haven't invested in them, you haven't put any energy into them, you haven't empowered them in any way. And we get a solid 5.5 hours, maybe 5 some days. I mean, it's California, weather's nice, things happen. But at least 5 hours, 5.5 hours a day of solid, hardcore work. They give it their all every single day, 5 days a week, plus the amount of effort they put into their own development and things like that. And so Hugh, kind of the question or the additional comment I'd say is, what's your response to them now, the naysayers?
I'd say that's actually the way I started the meeting. I said, when I asked for the hour, I said, I can take 2 hours out of everyone's day. We'll get the same amount of stuff out the door, I promise. But it's definitely something similar along those lines. Training your people is the shortcut. Developing your people is the shortcut to having all of this time and productivity. Saying, hey, we got 15 minutes for you to go solve the problem that's really annoying you. And you're the expert. You've ran 800 pieces of pipe yesterday. I've ran 6 in my life. You've ran 10,000 this month. You're the expert. I'm not the expert. You fix it. I'll train you for, we'll invest in you, but you go and figure it out because, well, I don't know. You know far better than I do. And taking that time to develop your people is where you gain all that productivity back, because most people, even though they were in grade school and high school, unless you were like in Boy Scouts or had a coach for some team, rarely, in the United States at least, does anyone actually invest in you and say, hey, how are you doing? Coach you. Hey, last week it was this. What are you thinking now? Is there anything you need help with? Most people don't do that. And if you make the time to do that, it'll pay for itself tenfold. It's just hard to quantify on paper, so people don't believe it.
Excellent. Wonderful. So thank you, Hugh. That was an incredible presentation. I appreciate it.